Okay, I'm doing another update. Um, it's been a couple of months. I had some other projects that I was working on that are complete. And I've had an itch with the metahumans again. So I am going to give you a update. A couple of videos back, I believe I talked about the complexity of the metahumans and how they are laid out as compared to earlier versions of my code in Unreal. So I'm going to go over what I basically did. Right now, what we see is a metahuman. This actually came from MetaHuman Creator. I just clicked a couple of buttons and imported this into my project. And looks like it basically made these connections, these folders right here where Hannah lives. And been playing around with a couple things. So we're looking at this map, and there's the Hannah BP. And I also have the anim BP that I modified, or I duplicated and modified. One of the main things that have changed here is that I was, as you can see, with these metahumans, they come out with different meshes, and everything is broken down differently. And that was kind of throwing me for a loop because I was trying to, this code that you see right here runs in the anim blueprint for the particular character, and I was using the PyCharacter class that was in the last second to last video that I showed how to create. And I started thinking about it and thinking about it. I said, well, that's not going to work for this the metahuman layout because I'm not creating a PyCharacter from scratch. I'm getting a metahuman from the MetaHuman Creator project. So I kind of figured it out. This code should look the same, relatively speaking. This is kind of new, and compared to the original anim BP, and I'll go over that. You already get this face, which is this guy right here, but now on these individual mesh components, you can have their own anim BPs. So the body can have its own anim BP, and then we have the face. So I took all the code, not a lot of code, that was in the PyCharacter class, and I basically, let's see if we can remember how to do this. Let's go to map, window, Python editor. You have this PyZMQ comp class, and it's literally the same thing other than it says this, and it's almost identical. But what I'm doing in this code is, again, identical to what was in the PyCharacter class, is that this is a component. And in order to do that, you right click and new blueprint class, and then you go down and you say Py, and you can see character, and you can see component, PyComponent. That's the only difference. And let's see, where does this component live, as a matter of fact? I created it right here. I think it's in my one of my other folders. I'm not going to go look for it. So, well, maybe I will. There it is. So it creates something that looks like this. And then what you can do is, obviously when you're in this BP, you can add component and you search for it and it will show up. So that's the only difference, is that in the, there she is, construction script, this is what comes with the MetaHumans out of the box. So I don't know much about this other than they're controlling the MetaHuman, and I just left that part alone. The part I did change is that on event begin play, I wanted to get the faces, this guy right here, animation instance, and cast that to my AnaBP for the face, and then save it, and then I just plug this all back into whatever they were doing originally, and this is all basically the original stuff that you get with MetaHumans, and I'll have to kind of go back through that and figure out what's it. Also has ARKit set up, which we're not using ARKit, and I could probably take that out. Now then we get back into the regular code of, and this is, you know, the first time we go up, we go into this AnaBP. We want to set up our timer to take the PyComponent and then start extracting, you know, data every second. You can change that. And then what we do is we promote these variables like we always do over in here. So now the BP has these variables that are coming from the Python component as opposed to the PyCharacter component. So this is I tried to do this in the beginning and I was a little too new to Unreal, and I stopped and I went with PyCharacter to make it easier on myself. But I originally thought about using a component, and I like the idea of using a component because technically as Unreal evolves, it might evolve so far away from the Python plugin that it'll just be a pain to use the Python plugin. And the Python plugin is really not doing much other than shuttling information back and forth between our controller app. So I'm getting all the data right here, blink, blah, 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 head, roll, getting all that information. And then the next thing we did is I took the original animBP that MetaHumans generates, and then I modify it. And this really looks no different than this PyCharacter animBP right here, which is a little bit more advanced. But since I'm not using this, I'm going to have to reconstruct it. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail what this means because I just took the original and modified it. But the animgraph is the thing that's the most important, and as you can see, we're going to be modifying curves. So all of this right here is going to be duplicated, and I'm actually probably going to be componentizing this. So what you're seeing here is the original, and then we're going to come back over to I don't know why it's doing that. That's strange. Okay, but anyway, you'll see the same things here. They want to cache this pose, and then with that cached pose, now what I'm doing is moving. Let's see, is that mine? I don't think that this isn't mine right here. This is mouth close. Teeth controls. I just left these in here because I'm potentially going to be using them. The AR kit I took out. It was right in the middle. Probably could connect this line directly to here. Leave that out. So I don't even know if that's HBP. I think I reused this jaw open. So when you look at the animgraph, you'll see this jaw open alpha, and that is, doesn't look like it's going into there. Sorry about that. Modify curves. Oh, jaw open alpha. So teeth show alpha. So these areas right here and these controls are eventually going to be what we call viseme and phoneme. These are going to be the equivalent of visemes. So we're going to take these values right here, and then we are going to control the expressions. So now what I'm looking at in this document on viseme and phonemes, because the last video we had code that would take a text word and turn it into the phonetic units. I'm fuzzy on all that, but I'm going to have to get better at it. So we are in, I duplicated the original face anim that came with the HANA MetaHuman that I created, and then I hacked it up because I'm going to be making it a little bit more something like this. So here's, for instance, head rotate, right? And we're going to have to get that, whoops, over in here. And then we are going to control it from here. Right, so we do our event. We promote delta seconds so we can use it. There's the jaw open alpha. This right here, and the anim graph. There it is. That's why we have to have the anim BP cached, so we can get it. And then we do our interp delta seconds based off of the mouth position that we are changing with the app, and then we turn right around and we set it back. So you've seen some of this before. Let's crank it up. As you know, we have to run our server, and there it is. And I can go over this real quick. Some of this is up in the GitHub, but this is essentially the server. And all it's doing is taking, making a UI, and it's taking all of the data from the controls and putting it into this JSON payload, which gets sent when it's asked for. We create a thread. The main loop. So before we run any of this, for right now, we have to come in and we have to get this guy running. So he just kind of sits here. We have our same goofy controls, which we're going to change later on. Then we come back over to here and we say play. So we're sitting over there, and I just have some debug code. Shift F1. Oh, here we go with all the pop-ups. So the latest command, which doesn't do anything, but we have, that's the mouth value. Mouth pause 1. And there you go. Then it changes. Then it updates. So we had to take a couple steps backwards technologically to componentize the Py, make this PyComponent as opposed to a PyCharacter, because we're moving in the direction of maybe not being able to use Python anymore if I can't get it to compile with Unreal 5, right? So Unreal 5's coming out. Obviously, Unreal 4.27 just came out. So they are really pushing code out, which is great. But the the project that I'm using is basically defunct. Now let's try to do this. Let's do this. Let's see if I can go find this for you guys. As you can see, there's a lot of autonomous stuff going in here that... Okay. I'm showing you this because this is the guy that made the project that I am using that's modified. So I wanted to share that with everybody so you can get the history of this person that I've reached out to. And 20tab is, they are no longer support of the embedded Python. But I ran into this YouTube, and I wanted to share that, with everybody. So this is the guy. You can go watch this, what he started doing, which is just fascinating. All right, back to here. We're going to shut this one down. Okay, and obviously you have to start the server first. You have to run the code, run the project in Unreal. Then you have to kill Unreal, and then you can come back into the project and kill it. And as you can see, there's just a little bit of echo here saying, somebody asked for a command. So we kill it. Moving forward, I'm going to be trying to get back into the viseme phoneme thing. And let's see, I watch another guy that might be helpful, but sometimes his videos aren't up to speed. I'm watching this Cinetracer guy, and he is getting into the control rig side of MetaHumans, which is helpful to me because that's what these are. I believe these are control rig endpoints. And MetaHuman, what it does is it will bake in this huge control rig for the mesh and the skeleton. And that's why it's really kind of dangerous playing around with this stuff. So back to the this is just moving one one mouth pose. So you can imagine this is going to eventually turn into a function and move the mouth. And you can imagine over here you're going to have lots of these local variables. But the next thing I want to try to do when this thing runs is have higher level puppeteering controls and maybe have icons on here, kind of like what he does, but he's doing it inside the editor, and this is going to be external. And then you basically can set up a blink and maybe a blink rate. And then another thing that's interesting is fidgeting. And what we're trying to do is, these are very low level. We want to aggregate these into a, you know, a smile, a frown, a I'm, you know, I'm in a neutral pose, and that's really what we want to try to do. And I know some other software can do this in different ways, so we want to try to recreate that in this driver program, and that's what I'm going to be looking a little bit closer into. So I had to go backwards and reverse engineer and understand more about the metahumans, and then re-engineer what I had before I could move forward on the next step. Next step obviously being putting together, let's see, can I do that? This guy? No. Can't, that's not him, I don't think so. Oh, it is him. It's this guy. Is it Sin Tracer? No. Oh. Do it this way, Steve. Citizen Meta 1, which is the same guy. So this guy I've been watching, and then he goes into, he's going into this kind of thing. So let's do this. Let's do a stop. And he's building these controls inside of Unreal. I'm going to kind of, see, he says pull corners and all this, but what I want to do is have facial expressions that can be queued up into a sequencer. And I know Unreal has a sequencer, I get all that, but we're doing it external because we are going to be hooking up the chatbot engine. So that's going to be much more complicated to try to do inside of Unreal. But I want to have something like this in my Python user interface so I can stage these sequences. We can have eye jitter, we can have the head and eyes kind of moving around, exploring, and then as we have the conversation, this becomes focused because a dialogue session is beginning. Right. This is also interesting with his phonemes. These are things that the last piece of code kind of dealt with, the last video that I had. But what we're going to do now is we're going to map these to visemes. I'm trying to think, is it even on here? Probably. Let's do that. Let's just get, no, that's not it. Well, yeah, it is. You can go here, and this is what I've been reading up on. And a lot of this is old school stuff, other than they are using LSTM models to do some of the things I'm doing in the chatbot that I just use, Google text-to-speech and speech-to-text APIs for. But you can read this paper if you're that serious about it, and this is the next thing I'm going to be trying to do with the watered down version. But these are the viseme sets that I want to try to build, but we're going to build that in, it's going to be on the Unreal side, and then have to animate that and control it, and I seriously doubt I'm going to use a level sequencer to do that, because the eyes and the head movement and the mouth movement all need to be orchestrated based off of the, are we having a conversation or not? And, or maybe the character will obviously have a nice background in here, but it will move around and fritter around and do whatever. So that's way down the line. And until I get better at Unreal, the majority of that code is going to have to be in Python. But as Unreal, I get better at Unreal and orchestrating the visemes to phoneme mapping, then there'll be less code in the Python, and it'll be more in Unreal. So this is something, again, where are we? Yeah. Going to have to break all this down. You can imagine there's going to be more and more data that's coming over. And that's why I want to get better about Unreal, because the client, Python client server, needs to be just doing very high level sequencing commands. And then eventually I'll figure out how to do some of that in Unreal, and less and less, coming from Python. So anyway, that's kind of a ramble. That's where I'm at. I was working on some other projects with A&M the beginning of this year with autonomous racing. That kind of flamed out. It took time away from this project, so did some interesting stuff with the basically autonomous driving code, and I might have to break off 2 different, or now 3 different projects. Anyway, if you've gotten this far, I work full time, so I just squeezed out this last week, and a couple hours of work. It's like, yeah, I need to make a video on this, and now it's a week later, so someday I might be able to get to do this full time, and things will go a lot faster. But that's all I have right now. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments if you guys are interested in the autonomous driving stuff and or robotic stuff. I'm still interested in that, but I need to kind of finalize what we're doing here. This might turn into something that someday will make some money, and then I could do it full time. But that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later.